Hi guys, so today I'm going to be presenting my paper I wrote for our final. I wrote it over student motivation, which is also chapter 10 in our textbook. In my introduction, I stated that there have been numerous studies over student motivation. These studies include what is student motivation, why is student motivation important, the theories of student motivation, what impacts student motivation, and how to increase student motivation. Student motivation is also key in effective learning. What is student motivation and why is it important? Motivation can be described as the influence of needs and desires on the intensity and direction. Motivation can also be described as the processes involved in arousing, directing, and sustaining behavior. I took this to mean that student motivation is really just what gets students learning and what keeps them learning. Student motivation equals effective classroom management. That is one reason why it is very important. Another factor that contributes to student motivation's importance is motivation improves learning, initiative, effort, and persistence. So what are the theories of motivation? There are several. There's the behavioral learning theory. In it, it is believed that students are motivated to behave the way they should when they are presented with rewards for exhibiting such behavior. There's the theory of motivation and student needs, and this is the belief that a person must first satisfy the lower levels of the hierarchy before becoming motivated to satisfy higher levels. This stems from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's the theory of motivation attribution. This focuses more on how people explain the causes of their own successes and failures. Usually their knowledge, or they got lucky, or explanations like that fall under the attribution theory. There's a theory of motivation and mindset. This is part of the attribution theory as well. It suggests that motivation is affected by whether or not a student believes in him or herself to do well in a certain task. There's the theory of motivation and self-regulated learning, and this proposes that students who are highly motivated to learn something are more likely than other students to consciously organize their learning, carry out a learning plan, and retain the information they obtain. What impacts student learning? I found this framework from Changing Minds, and it's called the REACH framework. The R stands for relationships, the E stands for effort, the A stands for aspirations, the C stands for cognition, and the H stands for heart. How do relationships impact student motivation? Well, in my opinion, if a student has a good relationship with you, if a student respects you, they will be motivated to please you, which in return, they're motivated to do the work you assign them. Effort. Really, I see motivation impacting effort more than effort impacting motivation. If a student is highly motivated, then the effort they put into their work will be better than the effort they would put in their work if they're not highly motivated. Aspirations. In my paper, I pulled out two examples. One is a girl who aspired to be a doctor, so she did the best she could in school. She made straight A's. She graduated valedictorian with a perfect GPA, got a full ride to college so that she could pursue her dreams and her aspirations of becoming a doctor. And then my second example I pulled out is another girl who just decided that school wasn't really her thing, so she just slid along, and she aspired to be in the Navy, to just enter her career right away after high school, not going to college. And so her aspirations motivated her as well. She just kind of slid along, subpar, not really participating, but doing enough to get by so she could graduate and go on to what she really wanted to do. Cognition. I take cognition and student motivation as the students who believe in themselves. It kind of goes back to the attribution theory as well. The students who believe that they have the cognition to do the work assigned will be more motivated than those who think they are not smart enough to do the work assigned. And then heart. I think heart and cognition kind of go the same way. If a student believes in themselves, again with the attribution theory, then she will be motivated to do their work. So how do we increase student motivation? Motivation can be increased through promoting intrinsic motivation or extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is when a student is motivated by internal factors as opposed to the external drivers of extrinsic motivation. And we'll talk more about this in just a minute. Extrinsic motivation is when a student is motivated by external factors as opposed to the internal drivers of intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation can be promoted by creating a classroom climate that is warm, accepting, and positive, by giving reasoning as to why material needs to be learned, such as relating it to the real world, and maintaining students' curiosity. Extrinsic motivation can be promoted by offering schedule changes as a reward, such as a free period instead of study hall or something along those lines. Giving materialistic rewards as a reward, for example, giving students candy for doing something right, or giving them treasure box at the end of the week for exhibiting correct behaviors throughout the week. That's what I do with my preschoolers, in fact. And providing students with praise. This isn't materialistic, but it is still extrinsic because it is still a reward. In conclusion, motivation is the influence of needs and desires on the intensity and direction and is important for assorted reasons. There are several theories to help understand how students are motivated. There is a framework to help understand what impacts student motivation, and many strategies have been proposed to help educators along in motivating students in their classroom. That is the end of my presentation. I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to me and pay attention. Hopefully you learned something, or if anything, you reviewed in something that you learned earlier in this course. Thank you guys.